Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Our glory to Srila Prabhupada. So we are together for the second meeting of this course of the this study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So let me say the prayers quickly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militanjana Takshmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadamayanda Datti Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Pachitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shradvaita Gadadara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we will do the same thing as last time. I will speak for like maybe 1 hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes, something like that. And then at the end, we will have space for questions. So you can, take note of all your questions, or you can just write on the chat as we go. And then in the end, we go to the questions. And let me just see here. Okay, so I think we are good. So okay, so the first topic for today is that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the conclusion of the Vedas. And that was the topic of last meeting, right? How the Srimad Bhagavatam is the conclusion of the Vedas. So in the first part, last week we discussed how we can obtain perfect knowledge and how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the conclusion of all the Vedas. So if one has time, he may gradually, study all Vedic literature, starting from the four Vedas, then the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, and then all the Puranas, and so on. But people in our age, people have, limited attention, very short lives, and so we can attain perfection just by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, right? That's much easier. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the Vedas are like a desire tree that contains all types of knowledge, right? And because most people, they are interested only in the four materialistic religious principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, which mean like Dharma means mundane religiosity, Artha means economic development, Kama means material sense gratification, and Moksha means impersonal liberation. So we can see that most people, they practice some kind of religion with these goals, right? That's usual. So because people are interested in these things, the Vedas explain a lot about how to obtain, these things in the Karma-kanda sections, right? These are the sections of the Vedas for materialistic people that teach how to get material results. But and then for people who are spiritually inclined, there are the Jnana-kanda sections, like that deal with spiritual knowledge. And this includes the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, and so on. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, it brings the highest knowledge, right? Directly describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the essence or the ripened fruit of Vedic literature. So actually, everything is here. We don't need to go anywhere. We are not going to find anything more valuable outside. So then, another topic, Krishna attracts everyone. And that's another important point that we need to understand before really starting with the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam is so attractive that it can attract everyone, even people who are already liberated. So, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10, there is a very famous verse, that's the Atmaramas verse, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once explained in 64 different ways. So that the verse is Atmaramas Chamunayo Nigranta Api Urukrame Kurvanti Ahai to King Bhaktin Itambuta Guno Harihi. So the translation by Prabhupada is that all different varieties of atmaramas means self-realized souls, right? Especially those established on the path of self-realization, uh, although no, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, they desire to render devotional service into the personality of Godhead. And this means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities, and therefore he can attract everyone, even liberated souls, right? And this is a verse that we will study with more detail later. But the meaning is that Krishna attracts everyone, right? A person may be educated or not educated. He may have money or not have money. He may follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, like or not, like in other words, be a pious person or an impious person. He may be conditioned by the three modes of material nature, or he may be free from these three modes, and so on, right? But Krishna, he attracts everyone, even the liberated souls, right? So that's the meaning that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the basic meaning that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained in these 64 different ways, right? So when Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, right, 5,000 years ago, he attracted everyone, even the birds, the beasts, the trees, the plants. So in Vrindavan, everyone became attracted to Krishna, right? And so liberation is actually not a very high thing. So, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Brahma Bhuta Prasada Atmana Sochatina Kangsati Samas Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktin Labate Param. So in this verse, Krishna says that one who is thus transcendentally situated, right? One who becomes free from all material contamination, at once, like immediately, realizes the Supreme Brahman, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, and becomes fully joyful. And in this platform, he never laments or desires to have anything because he got everything already, right? He is equally disposed toward every living entity. And in that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So this verse explains that even after one becomes free from all material contamination, there is still something higher, and that's love for Krishna. And this love for Krishna or prema is the eternal nature of the soul. And only when a person attains this prema, will he become fully satisfied. So amongst all the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the book that directly speaks about this pure devotional service to Krishna, right? The only thing that can really, truly, fully satisfy the soul. And therefore, it can attract everyone, right? Just like Krishna can attract everyone, Srimad Bhagavatam can attract everyone, like including all kinds of liberated souls. And surely it can attract us also, right? And actually, all of us are already attracted to Krishna. The problem is that we are attracted in the wrong way. No one can say that I'm not attracted to Krishna, but we are attracted in incorrect ways. That's the problem. So because everything that exists is connected with Krishna, right? And Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from just a spark of my splendor, right? Everything that is beautiful comes from me, just a small portion of my energy. But then he says that, but what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? Because with a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support, like maintain this entire universe, right? So this is Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So everything that is beautiful, attractive comes from Krishna. Everything is like comes from the energy of Krishna. The problem is that now we are trying to enjoy these different things as separated from Krishna. And that's the source of all our problems. And how can we change it? So devotees who are twice initiated, right? They chant the Gayatri mantra like 3 times per day. And the first verse of the Gayatri mantra, the one who everyone knows, is a meditation on the light of the sun. So you may ask, why don't we meditate on the light of the sun, right? Why not meditate on Krishna, right? Directly. So the point is that the light of the sun is understood to be a reflection of the light of Krishna's effulgence. So the sun is just like a mirror that reflects a tiny portion of the light of the Brahmajyoti, which in turn, no, comes from Krishna. It's just the effulgence of the body of Krishna, right? So behind this light that is of the Brahmajyoti that is reflected by the sun, is Krishna, right? Performing his personal pastimes in the spiritual world. So in this way, this mantra teaches us that the light of the sun is not different from Krishna. And we can see Krishna every time we look at the sun or we see the light of the sun, right? So in the same way, all beautiful, powerful, no, all beauty, power, strength, intelligence, knowledge, renunciation. In other words, all the qualities that we find attractive in different persons and objects and other kinds of beings, they are just faint, tiny reflections, like weak reflections of the opulence of Krishna, right? So these different people and objects, they're just like mirrors where the beauty, opulence, and so on of Krishna are reflected. However, due to the influence of Maya, illusion, we become attracted to the mirror instead of becoming attracted to the person who is being reflected, right? And when we become attracted by the illusion, right, instead of the real self, instead of being attracted to Krishna, then we end up being abandoned by all these things that we are attracted to. All these people, all this thing, everything leaves us eventually, right? And this is because that's the nature of material illusion, right? Everything that is separated from Krishna becomes temporary in nature. And when we become attached, so then we become attached to these things, and then we suffer when we lose them, right? These things were never actually ours. That's why we lose. When something is really ours, then we never lose it. That's how it works in the spiritual world. So only when we become attracted to the final source of all these things, right, to Krishna, then we can find eternal happiness. So the Bhagavatam is thus a book that teaches us how to find happiness, real happiness, not just, temporary happiness. And one of the names of Krishna is Hari, right? Very famous name, Hari. So the meaning of Hari is that on the one side, he takes away all inauspicious things. And on the other side, he gives the most auspicious things. So when a person develops love of Godhead, his mind becomes automatically attracted to the name, form, and qualities of the Lord. And normally we have, a lot of trouble controlling our minds, right? But this is only because at present, right, at present time, our attention is focused on material things. And the mind becomes attracted, to all these material things that we are seeing and experiencing, right? So the special quality of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that by regularly hearing from it, our minds become gradually attracted to Krishna. And then as our attention becomes focused on Krishna, we gradually become less interested in the things of this material world. And this is the power of hearing about the transcendental activities of Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees in their, innumerable pastimes. Right? That's the power of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then a short story of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? so, uh, so in the last week we studied the first 3 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So after explaining the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first 3 verses, Vyasadeva, he describes the scenario of the discussion. Because everything that is spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken 4 to 5,000 years ago in the forest of Naimisharanya. This is all of this was spoken in a conversation between Sutta Goswami and the group of great sages led by Saunaka Rishi. The five first verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are like a preface by Vyasadeva. Then Sutta Goswami starts speaking. Then the whole Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami is speaking, right? Even later, when Sukadeva Goswami starts to speak, Maitreya starts to speak, and so on, still Sutta Goswami is speaking. No, he's repeating all these words. The whole Bhagavatam, actually, Sutta Goswami is speaking, right? To Saunaka Rishi. So, so this discussion happened already after the beginning of Kali Yuga. So the sages, they executed a great sacrifice for 1,000 years to try to counteract, right, the negative influences of Kali Yuga. So they chose the forest of Naimisharanya for that because it's mentioned mentioned in the scriptures that by performing sacrifices in Naimisharanya, the strength of the demoniac people is reduced, right? So that's the symptom of saintly people, right? They are always concerned about the well-being of others, right? That's very interesting to note. So Srila Prabhupada comments about that in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 114. So okay, I will just read this quote. So Prabhupada says that the great sages are always anxious to do good to the people in general. And as such, the great sages headed by Saunaka and others assembled at this holy place of Naimisharanya with a program of performing a great and continuous chain of sacrificial ceremonies, right? 1,000 years of sacrifices. So forgetful men do not know the right path for peace and prosperity. However, the sages know it well, and therefore, for the good of all men, they are always anxious to perform acts which may bring about peace in the world. So they are sincere friends to all living entities, and at the risk of great personal inconvenience, they are always engaged in the service of the Lord for the good of all people, right? So from this we can understand a little bit about the mentality, right, of these great sages. However, the sages, they were not only concerned about executing sacrifices, they were also concerned about their own spiritual development. And therefore, they asked Sutta Goswami to speak to them about the transcendental message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So they could also develop, this pure love for Krishna. So the story of Sutta Goswami and how he came to narrate the Srimad Bhagavatam is also quite interesting. So the father of Sutta Goswami, Romaharshana, was a disciple of Vyasadeva, who learned the Puranas from him. So he got the Puranas directly from Vyasadeva. So Romaharshana was a great scholar. Okay. So Ramaharshana was a great scholar who divided the 18 Puranas into 4 compilations. And then he wrote 6 anthologies that were taught to 6 different disciples, as well to his son, right? To Sutta Goswami. At that time, he was not Goswami. He was just a boy, Sutta, right? He was a 5-year-old boy. So all this happened during the time that Krishna was still present here on the planet, right? And Ramaharshana was also the sage who was originally speaking the the Puranas to the sages in the forest of Naimisharanya, right? This recitation of the Purana, it started actually a little before the battle of Kurukshetra, and it continued for 1,000 for a very long time. I will not say 1,000 years because I was not there. I don't know exactly the chronology, but it continued for a very long time. So the problem was that Ramaharshana, he became somehow a little bit proud. And then he ended up offending Lord Balarama when he visited the assembly. So the story is that Ramaharshana was seated in the Vyasasana, right, speaking to the sages. And it's the custom that when one is speaking from the Vyasasana, he doesn't need to get down to greet people who come, right? People come and he just continues speaking, right? That's normal. However, in this case, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally came, right? So, of course, you are going to offer respects to him, right? However, Ramaharshana, he just continued speaking. He ignored the presence of Lord Balarama. Even though, all the other sages, they got up, they were offering, obeisances and respects to Balarama, Ramaharshana, he didn't care. He just continued speaking. So, noticing his pride, Balarama used a blade of grass to cut off his head, right? This here, see? He used, and then he cuts the head of Ramaharshana, right? So one may question, of course, how this is possible, right? How can one cut someone's head with a blade of grass? But Prabhupada, he reminds us that Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is all-powerful. So there is no problem for him to use a blade of grass or anything else as a weapon, right? He doesn't need weapon at all. He can cut using his own hands. So after receiving prayers from the sages, Lord Balarama, he offered to bring Ramaharshana back to life. But the sages, they asked him instead to bless his son, Sutta Goswami, to speak and continue this narration of the Puranas that was started by his father. Probably they understood, right, that later the same Sutta Goswami would be able to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam to them. So the story of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that Vyasadeva, he first spoke the original version that he had compiled to his son, right, Sukadeva Goswami, who later spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaja Parikshit, right? So Sutta Goswami was also present at this meeting, and later he described the Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages in the forest of Naimisharanya, right? No, for this he had, the full blessings of Lord Balaram, right? So both Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami, of course, they are far from being, ordinary persons. Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna, right? Who comes to restore Vedic knowledge when it's almost lost at the end of Dwapara Yuga, right? And this happens every Dwapara Yuga. Every Dwapara Yuga, Vyasadeva comes. And Sukadeva Goswami is considered to be an incarnation of the parrot of Srimati Radharani, who came especially to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Illuminating thus, the age of Kali. So being such an exalted soul, Sukadeva, he has a very profound knowledge about the about the spiritual relationships, about different races, and thus he was elected as the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So he was speaking even in the presence of both Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, who were there at the assembly hearing him, right? He was speaking in the presence of the Guru and the Paranguru, right? So that's how exalted he is. So although Sukadeva Goswami is an eternally liberated soul, that's another interesting pastime. He played the role of a Brahmavadi while he was in the womb. And he was showing, fear of material energy and thus refusing to come out of the womb of the mother. So there are two types of impersonalists, the Brahmavadis and the Mayavadis, right? So the Brahmavadis, they are just more attracted to the impersonal aspects, right? They're not offensive. They just don't know. And they can become Vaishnavas if they hear about Krishna, right? But the Mayavadis, they are different. They are offensive. They reject the personal form of Krishna as material. So Mayavadis, even if they hear about Krishna, they don't become devotees. But the Brahmavadis, they can. So in total, Sukadeva Goswami, he stayed inside the womb for 12 years. 12 years, imagine. And he came out only when Vyasadeva, he brought Krishna himself, and he reassured him that he would not be captured by Maya. He was afraid of Maya. So only when Krishna himself came and said, okay, I bless you, Maya will never catch you, then he came out. But even then, he immediately ran away from home, right? Leaving for the forest, to live as a renunciant, right? He was already 12 years old, right? So he could do that. And with great difficulty, Vyasadeva was able to bring him back home for a short period of time to listen to the Bhagavad Purana, which Sukadeva later expanded in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam that he spoke to Maharaj Parikshit, right? So after hearing the Bhagavad Purana from Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami, he used his mystic powers to expand himself in two forms, right? So the original Sukadeva, he continued as a renounced sage, right? And later spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. And the expansion returned home and stayed with his father, right? With Vyasadeva. So he became two. So the expansion of Sukadeva later entered family life and he had a daughter, that's a whole pastime. But the real Sukadeva is the one who continued as a brahmachari and later spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it makes, again, right, the skeptic can, argue that it may sound strange that a person may expand into two, right? A person may become two. But that's actually quite common with, higher personalities, high personalities. Demigods and great yogis, they can also do that. So Prabhupada explains, he mentions this story of Sukadeva Goswami much later in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He mentions that on his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 9:21-25. So okay, I will just read the quote here. So Prabhupada says, Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is described in great detail in the Brahma-vaivarta Purana. There it is said that Vyasadeva maintained the daughter of Jabali as his wife, and that after they performed, penances together for many years, he placed his seed in her womb, right? He made a child. So the child remained in the womb of his mother for 12 years. And when the father asked the son to come out, the son replied that he will not come out unless he were completely liberated from the influence of Maya. Vyasadeva then assured the child that he will not be influenced by Maya, but the child did not believe his father, for his father was still attached to his wife and children. So he said, you are not free from Maya. How can you promise me? So Vyasadeva then went to Dwarka and informed the personality of Godhead about his problem. And the personality of Godhead, at Vyasadeva's request, went to Vyasadeva's cottage, where he assured the child in the womb that he will not be influenced by Maya. And thus assured, the child came out, right? But he immediately went away as a Parivrajakacharya. Still, he didn't want to play with Maya, right? When the father, very much aggrieved, began to follow his saintly boy, Sukadeva Goswami, the boy created a duplicate Sukadeva, who later entered family life. Therefore, the Sukakanya, the daughter of Sukadeva mentioned in this verse, is the daughter of the duplicate or imitation Sukadeva. The original Sukadeva was a lifelong brahmachari. So interesting, right? That's the story of Sukadeva Goswami. Okay, now let's speak about Sutta Goswami, about the qualifications of Sutta Goswami to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So Sutta Goswami, he had many special characteristics that made him qualified to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam. And these qualifications, they are described in the verses 116 to 118. So these verses, they read that the sages said, "Respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in the scriptures famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well. For you have gone through them under the proper guidance and have also explained them. Being the eldest learned Vedantists, O Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead, and you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. And because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us uh, all that you have scientifically learned from them. Right? So these are these three verses. They describe the qualifications of Sutta Goswami. Right? I put him a summary here in the slide. So in his purport, Prabhupada emphasizes the importance of hearing the scriptures from advanced devotees, right? Although reading is essential, also hearing has a special quality. So it says here, Srimad Bhagavatam 116, to hear and explain then is more important than reading them. So one can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. So this is a quote from Prabhupada. Hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtan. The two processes of Shravana and Kirtan are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. And that's Srimad Bhagavatam 116, right? That's quote from Prabhupada. So when hearing, right, another quality is important. One needs to be submissive. And being submissive does not mean, being fanatical and accepting, everything blindly. No, that's not what is meant here. It means valuing the knowledge that we are receiving and understanding that the Srimad Bhagavatam brings perfect knowledge, right? So one has to study the Srimad Bhagavatam starting from the idea that everything that everything that it contains, like this transcendental knowledge, and that everything that the book mentions is correct, right? It's our understanding that needs to be adjusted to fit this knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam, not the opposite, right? So that's very important to have this mentality, to be able to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada, he gives the example of cow dung, right? So cow dung is the stool of an animal, right? From the cow. And it's this, but although it's the stool of an animal, it's described in the scriptures as pure. And again, it may sound illogical at first, right? How the stool of an animal can be pure? What is that? But when we bring the cow dung to the laboratory, we can observe that it has antiseptic qualities. It can be tested, scientifically tested. So cow dung, it kills bacteria, and thus it can be used as a disinfectant. This is scientific. So in India, for example, cow dung is often used, to clean floors, to clean kitchen utensils, like instead of detergents. They do this in the villages and in some temples. So it may sound difficult to believe at first, right? But when we test it, we see that the knowledge is correct. So similarly, the Bhagavatam, it includes many details about the universe and its history, as well as the activities of many personalities. And this may sound, fictitious at first. It may sound like fiction, right? But as we advance in our understanding, we see that this is all correct. We see that all the knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam is correct. So when we start from this principle that all information contained in the text is correct, right? Then we will have sufficient humility to change our points of view, and thus we can gradually understand the text, right? If, however, we start from the principle, from the idea that whatever we know is correct and the Srimad Bhagavatam is mythology, then we will fail in our study. Then we will not be able to understand anything, right? So apart from being free from vices and knowledgeable in the scriptures, having both learned, learned the scriptures and explained them many times, Sutta Goswami, he was blessed by his spiritual masters. Why? Because he was a submissive and qualified student, right? So the blessings of senior persons are another factor that is extremely important in our spiritual life because they make us qualified to understand spiritual knowledge, right? So that's very interesting, right? So, okay, so this was no introduction. Now let's start with the study itself, right? So, the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is centered around, actually, no, first, second, and third chapter. They are centered around 6 questions that are asked by the sages in the first chapter. In the first chapter, they ask the questions, and then second and third chapter, they are dedicated to answering these 6 questions, right? So these questions, they appear from verses 119 to 123, right? So in these verses, the sages, they ask the 6 questions to Sutta Goswami. And these questions, they're not only asked for the sage's own sake, right? It's not just for the sages. They are concerned about the situation of people who will be living in the age of Kali. They are asking these questions for us, actually. And they want to get from Sutta Goswami some knowledge that can help, these people from Kali Yuga, us, to get out of this darkness and illusion of this age. So each cycle of creation of the universe, right, is divided here in our planet in 1,000 cycles of 4 ages, right? Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, right? We have 1,000 times this cycle of 4 eras in one cycle of creation, in one day of Brahma. So we have these 4 ages, right? And unfortunately for us, we live in the most degraded of these 4 ages, right? Kali Yuga. And that's the age where people not only have very short lives, but they are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. And this is mentioned also. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.10. It mentions our personal qualities, right? So in previous ages, people used to be purer, right? They lived for thousands of years. They had a natural inclination for practicing self-realization. But unfortunately, that's not the case nowadays, right? And the sages, thus, they were anxious for a process that would work, that will work, right? Despite all these, shortcomings that we have. So, like I said, the 6 questions, they are asked in chapter 1, and the answers they are giving in chapters 2 and 3, right? Thus, these 3 chapters, they are very intimately connected, right? So the first question is asked on Srimad Bhagavatam 119. So, okay, now we will study in detail the 6 questions, right? The first question is 119. So the question is, what is the ultimate good for people, right? So the verse is, please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easy understandable way what you have ascertained, what you have concluded to be the absolute and ultimate good for people in general, right? And then Sutta Goswami, he answers this question in 126, right? Remember, the questions are all in the first chapter, and the answers are all on chapter 2 and 3, right? We have this division. But to make it easier to understand, I'm just putting them together. Question 1, answer. Question 2, answer, right? So, okay, so the answer for this first question comes on 126. So the answer is, the supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain loving devotional service into the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So that's the greatest good, right? Devotional service, pure devotional service. There is nothing better. So the Vedas, they explain many types of dharma, right? Or religious duties that apply, to different people according to their way of life. There are different types of dharma for brahmanas, for kshatriyas, and so on. However, there is a type of dharma that is higher and that applies to everyone, and that's pure devotional service to Krishna, right? Other types of dharma, different duties, rules and regulations prescribed in the scriptures, they can help us to live a pious life and thus, gradually advance in spiritual life. But although they help and although they are important, these other types of dharma, they are by themselves insufficient. They are incomplete. Only when they lead us to develop love for Krishna is their real purpose fulfilled, right? So they just bring the function of these other dharmas is to bring us to the platform of devotional service, to help us to come to the platform of devotional service. So they are just they start, right? They're like they stare. So pure devotional service, it has two characteristics. The first is that it is unmotivated because it is practiced out of love, right? Without expectancy of material results. And the second is that it is uninterrupted because once one develops this love for Krishna, he will continue serving Krishna without stopping, right? Eternally. So this transcendental relationship, it starts here in the material world, right? And it continues like eternally in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada explains this in the purport, in his purport to this verse, purport to 126. So Prabhupada says, quoting here, each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence. And Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy, right? It's the closest type of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses, right? As we advance. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction, right? So Prabhupada makes it clear in the purport, right? That this devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal for everyone, right? And so that's the first question, right? What is the ultimate good for people? And then the second question, what is the essence of the scripture? And this comes on 1:11. So the verse is, the verse with the question is, there are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties, which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions, right? So many details. Therefore, O sage, please select this essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied, right? And the answer for this question is given in 127. So it's said there that by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world, right? So what does it mean? So the point is that although the Vedas, they explain many different subjects, right? Many different topics, giving different instructions to different type of people, the ultimate goal of the Vedas is to bring people to the platform of devotional service to Krishna, right? Everything else in the Vedas is more or less like an excuse or some enticement, right? Some bait to just attract people, to gradually bring people to this ultimate conclusion, right? Everything else is just to help people to go there. It's not, the goal is not to just bring people to be pious, to do fruitive activities and all these things. No, this is just meant to be a step on the stair, right? The goal is to bring gradually everyone to devotional service. So different from different activities now offered in the Vedas, such as sacrifices, austerities, and so on, that are available only to certain classes of people who have, the necessary qualifications to perform these activities. Devotional service, on the other hand, it can be practiced by everyone without any consideration of gender, age, culture, social status, and so on, right? As Prabhupada mentions in his purport, to this verse, bhakti is simultaneously sublime and easy. And it is sublime for advanced devotees, right, who are in, direct contact with the Lord. And it's easy for others who are just starting, right? So for the neophyte, it's easy. And for the advanced devotee, for the pure devotee, it is sublime, right? Wonderful. So it is a science that is open to all classes of people. Everyone can practice it. So to become free from material things without a positive engagement is very, very difficult, right? Like no one can give up, all his desires and just becomes, a dead stone, right? It's not possible. So the way to become free from the negative desires connected with material ambitions, material desires and so on, is to develop positive desires that are connected with the service to Krishna, right? So when the desire to serve Krishna becomes sufficiently strong, sufficiently mature, then the desire to engage in negative, material ambitions, it starts to disappear. So desire continues to be present. Desire is always there. But the quality changes from material to spiritual, right? So just like material desires, they keep us in this world, spiritual desires, they bring us back to the spiritual world. So we just need to replace one for the other, actually, right? It's not so difficult. Therefore, just like the ultimate good is to practice devotional service, the essence and the ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to explain devotional service, right? So without developing love for Krishna, just following rules and regulations, it doesn't have much utility, right? The rules, they exist to bring us to the platform of devotional service. Rules by itself, they are not complete, right? They don't bring us to the ultimate goal. So rules are important, but they are not sufficient by itself. They need to be followed by devotional practice. And then we have three other verses, like the three next verses, they explain this better. They make it more clear. So 128, it says that the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. You see, just duties without developing love for Krishna, they are just useless labor. You are like basically wasting your time. So the idea is that by following the Vedas, people can at first come to a pious platform of life, right? That serves as a base for them to go further, starting on the path of devotional service, right? Because sinful life is a great obstacle on the path of self-realization. So once a person starts leading, a pure and religious life, then many obstacles are cleared in his path. His path back to Godhead becomes, open. However, if a person just continues executing material duties and activities and never comes to the platform of devotional service, all this effort is considered useless, right? Because he's working, but he's not getting the result of this work, right? He's working, but he's not getting the fruit of this work, right? Why he's working then? So one does never find real happiness, right? Happiness comes in the platform of devotional service. And in his purport to this verse, like 128, Prabhupada, he mentions that, quote, there is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and the mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke, that will bring out our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein in this verse to be simply a waste of time, right? Unquote, right? Interesting, right? Prabhupada makes it so clear in his purport. So, so on the other hand, right? Other side of the question, when about rules and regulations, if a person follows, these different rules and regulations, becomes pious, then when a person finally attains the platform of devotional service, now coming from this pious life, then he can continue practicing these rules and regulations as a way to serve as an example to others. And this is a very great responsibility that all kinds of seniors and of course and especially spiritual authorities they have, right? Give example to the others. No matter what is their level, but still they have this duty of giving example to who is starting. So Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita 3:21. He says that whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues, right? Everyone follows. And the next verse, 1 to 9, he further explains that. So the verse says that all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service shall never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So this verse speaks about this general tendency of ordinary, pious people to perform, some religious or pious duties to gain some material blessings or some material profit, right? This is very, very common. So even in the Vedas, right, many passages, they offer material blessings as a way to convince, these materialistic people to start their spiritual practice. So although this is a way to start, as we become serious in the practice of devotional service, it actually becomes an obstacle that prevents us from going further. This idea that I'm going to serve Krishna to get some material benefit, to get some blessings, auspiciousness, and so on, right? This may help in the beginning. It may help us to start, right? Looks like, okay, I'm going to serve Krishna because now Krishna is going to give me a wonderful life, right? But make me happy, right? But as we progress, we need to give it up because it will prevent us from going further. Our devotional service needs to become a haitukiya pratihata, right? So instead, right, as the verse explains, the idea is that we should practice devotional service from a humble platform, performing our material duties as an offering to Krishna, as a way to give a good example to others, and at the same time, internally focus on our spiritual practice, right? And Prabhupada gives a very interesting analogy to this. He uses the analogy of a lover to explain how this works. So he explains that if a married woman finds a lover, she will become even more attentive in taking care of the family, doing everything at home, so no one will suspect, right? But at the same time that she's doing, all these duties, so perfectly, she will be always thinking of her lover, right? Similarly, a devotee externally continues, performing, his different duties, for family and society, but internally he becomes focused on his spiritual practice. So that's the idea. That's how devotional service and duties, they go together, right? Duties are what we do externally. Devotional service is what we do internally, what we are always meditating on, what we are always desiring. So, and then there is third verse, 1 to 10, that concludes this topic. So it says that life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a health life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So Prabhupada explains that because the body is made of senses, right? How many senses we have in the body? 6, right? Including the mind. And then we have 5 more, the hands, the legs, and so on, right? So So Prabhupada explains that because the body is made of senses, it always requires a certain amount of satisfaction. Because one has to eat, to sleep, and so on. It's not possible to live without these things. But all this should be done in the right measure. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one can't be a yogi if he sleeps too much or sleeps too little, if he eats too much or eats too little, right? So in this way, we make, arrangements, for prasadam, to satisfy the necessity for eating. We make arrangements for beds, and mattresses, and other facilities for sleeping. We make arrangements for, religious marriages and so on, right? There are different arrangements to satisfy these basic needs, because without these things, anyone can live, right? However, there is the other side, that unrestricted sense enjoyment is considered very dangerous for one who is seriously interested in advancing spiritually. So that is a right measure, just like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Because the more we try to satisfy the needs of the body and the desires of the mind, the more we fall back to the material platform, right? So if the idea is to get out, then this should, be a cause of concern. So there is thus a very delicate balance between satisfying the basic necessities of the body and becoming attached to material life. So there is this balance, right? And all of us has to find the right measure, right? And this right measure, it will vary from person to person, right? There is no like formula that will work for everyone. So okay, so this is the second question. So let's go to the third question. Why and how did Krishna appear on this planet as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, right? And this question is asked is on 1:12. So the verse is, all blessings upon you, O Sutta Goswami. You know for what purpose the personality of Godhead appeared in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva, right? And the answer comes on 1:34, right? End of second chapter. So there it said that, thus the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performed pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Right? So this is the answer. So what it means. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he comes to this world to kill the atheistic demons, to protect the devotees, and to reestablish the principles of religion, right? And that's Bhagavad Gita 4, 7, 8. However, the first and the third activities, right, to reestablish the principles of religion and to kill the demons, they are actually secondary. The real reason that Krishna comes to this world to give in different forms to give association to his devotees and bring them back to Godhead. That's the real reason. That's the primary reason. And not just his pure devotees, but all pious souls, like people influenced by the mode of goodness, right? Pious sages, demigods, and so on. They are all benefited when the Lord comes. People influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance, like sinful atheists, fruitive workers, and so on, they usually they just offend Krishna and they just consider him an ordinary person, so they don't get so much benefit. But people who are in the mode of goodness, they go back to Godhead, or at least they advance a lot by the associating with Krishna, right? So Krishna, he is, of course, extraordinarily intelligent, and therefore he can fulfill many purposes, simultaneously through each of his actions and pastimes, right? So a more elaborate explanation of these of the reasons, right, for Krishna's advent, of course, it's given later in the 10th canto. But here, we have some general idea, right? Okay, third question. Then the fourth question is, what are the activities and pastimes that Krishna displays in his Purusha incarnations in creating the material universes? And so this is 1:117. The verse is, his transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narada sing of them. Please therefore speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations, right? And apparently, these two verses, they look very similar, right? They both ask about Krishna's pastimes and incarnations, right? But Srila Jiva Goswami, he explains that no, the second verse, 1:117, it asks about something different. It asks about the activities of the Lord, the incarnations of the Lord, connected with the creation of the material world. And the answers for that are on Srimad Bhagavatam 1:230 to 1:233, right? And so these verses, they explain about Lord Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashai Vishnu, and Kshirodakashai Vishnu, right? So as Lord Mahavishnu, Krishna creates the whole material manifestation, right? He generates the Mahatattva, right? The Mahatattva is the sum, is the combination of all material elements, right? The Mahatattva is like a cloud with all the material elements. And he emanates all the different material universes through his pores, right? And then through his look, he sends all the souls who want to take birth in these different universes. And then he enters into each of these universes as Garbhodakashai Vishnu, right? So the first one, Mahavishnu, right? Then the second one, Garbhodakashai Vishnu. Garbhodakashai Vishnu is the form of the Lord who lays down on the Garbhodaka ocean. That's the ocean that is there in the middle of the universe. Garbhodakashai Vishnu is inside the universe, and he's the form of the Lord who gives birth to Lord Brahma, right? There is this lotus flower coming from his navel, and from this lotus flower, Brahma appears. And then the Lord, after Garbhodakashai Vishnu, the Lord again expands, and he becomes Kshirodakashai Vishnu. And Kshirodakashai Vishnu, he is Paramatma. He enters into everything. He enters into the heart of all living beings and even inside the atoms, right? There is nothing inside, nothing in the universe that Kshirodakashai Vishnu doesn't know about. So we often think that there is a separate form of Paramatma in each living being and in each atom, right? It is very common to have this idea. But in reality, there is just one Kshirodakashai Vishnu, and he just expands and he just enters into everywhere, right? Simultaneously, he's present everywhere, but he's just one person. So the same Kshirodakashai Vishnu, he lives on a small island in the ocean of milk, and there are 7 cosmic oceans, right, that are parts of our planetary system of Bhumandala, and in the middle of the universe. So there is one ocean that is made of milk, and this is the ocean where Kshirodakashai Vishnu, he has his small islands. And this is also the form of the Lord to whom the demigods, they pray when they are defeated by the demons, when they have problems, and this is also described in different pastimes of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So every time that the demigods, they go to Lord Vishnu to pray, they are praying to Kshirodakashai Vishnu, actually. They have to go to the shore of the ocean of milk and, stay there praying until the Lord answers to them. So in this way, right, there are 3 different forms of Vishnu who participate in the creation of the material universes, right? And they are all partial expansions of Krishna, but they perform, different roles, right, in the material creation. So, in short, Lord Mahavishnu is the Lord who lays down the causal ocean and creates the universe, right? Lord Mahavishnu is just one, and his form is really gigantic, right? The universes, they pass through his pores. Then we have Garbhodakashai Vishnu, right? That is the form of Vishnu that that enters into each universe and lays down on the Garbhodaka ocean, and then he gives birth to Lord Brahma. And then we have Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, right? Paramatma. He lays down the ocean of milk and he permeates everything as Paramatma. And he also listens to the prayers of the demigods when they have problems, right? So, of course, there are many more details about these different forms of Vishnu, about Bhumandala, about the structure of the universe, about everything throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's actually one of the main topics of the books, right? So during our study, we will see much more details about that. But today we're just getting this, short answer that Sutta Goswami gives to the answers to the questions of the sages. Okay, that's question number 4. Then we have the 5th question. And what are the transcendental incarnations of the Lord and their pastimes? So the verse is 1:118, and the verse is, "O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers," right? So this question is answered in chapter 3, right? Chapter 3, it has a short description of many incarnations of Krishna, right? So chapter 3, it gives a short description of each of Krishna's incarnations in this particular universe, in this particular day of Brahma. So Krishna's form, of course, they are unlimited, and he plays, unlimited pastimes, in the spiritual world, in the different material universes, and so on. But to keep the list, short, Srila Sutta Goswami, he just describes the incarnations that appear in this particular universe and in the current cycle of creation. So every time that Lord Brahma goes to sleep, right, just speaking a little bit about these cycles of creation, every time that Lord Brahma goes to sleep, the universe, it is partially destroyed. And every time that he wakes up, the universe is created anew, right? So during each day, there is a sequence of different incarnations of the Lord, including, Naranarayana Rishis, Lord Kapila, Yaga, Rishabhadeva, Prithu, Matsya, Dhanvantari, Nrishinha, Vamana, Parashurama, Rama, Balarama, Kalki, and so on, right? As well as the 4 Kumaras, right? The sons of Brahma, Narada Muni. These are also counted amongst the incarnations, but they are not directly incarnations of the Lord. They are Saktyaveshas. They are special souls who are empowered by the Lord to perform different activities, right? So they are counted amongst the incarnations, but they are not, direct incarnations. They are empowered incarnation. Means they are jivas, they are souls who receive power to perform their activities. So all these different incarnations, right? It goes on during the day of Brahma, and it all culminates with Krishna coming personally with Balarama to perform their pastimes in Vrindavan. So Srila Vyasadeva, he concludes that all these different incarnations, they are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, right? Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He describes all the incarnations, but then he says, Krishna is the original, right? And he makes very clear there. So the activities of these different incarnations of Krishna are explained in more detail during the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So we have a summary on this 3rd chapter, but then of course, the whole Bhagavatam is going to be dedicated to explain these different incarnations. And then we come to the 6th and last question. And this question is asked on 1:123. So the verse is, so the question is, what became the shelter of the religious principles after Krishna left our planet 5,000 years ago, right? And the verse is, since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter, right? So, and then, So the idea is that Krishna, he was personally present on our planet with Balarama 5,000 years ago, right? And they both played their pastimes, just like human beings, but at the same time, they performed many wonderful activities, right? And Krishna organized things so that many demons, they would be killed, culminating with the battle of Kurukshetra, right? So in this way, Krishna took out the burden of all the sinful people and he restored religious principles. However, where can we take shelter now that Krishna left? Okay, when Krishna was in the planet, very easy to understand who was giving shelter. But what now? What can we do now to get shelter? And by the time Sutta Goswami was speaking the Bhagavatam to the sages, Krishna had already left. So this question was as relevant back there as it was today, right? The sages were as interested as us in the answer. And the answer comes on Srimad Bhagavatam uh, 1.3.43. So, end of third chapter. So, it says there that this Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So that's the answer. You see, Krishna went and the Bhagavatam came. The Bhagavatam is giving shelter for everyone in Kali Yuga, right? So at the same time that Krishna left our planet, right, when Krishna went up, going back to the spiritual world, the Srimad Bhagavatam descended, right? So they like this simultaneously. And Srimad Bhagavatam, it has this mission of giving, a beacon of light to the uh, people who are confused, because of all the ignorance and confusion of the age of Kali, right? So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is no different from Krishna. Therefore, taking shelter in the Srimad Bhagavatam by, attentively studying it is as good as associating with Krishna. There is no difference, right? So when Krishna was present on our planet 5,000 years ago, actually, not everyone could associate with him because many devotees they were able to associate with him only briefly. And some others, for example, the sages in Badarikashrama, they were not able to meet him personally at all. However, in our age, we can associate with Krishna constantly through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in other words, actually, we have a greater opportunity of understanding Krishna than the people who were leaving the planet when he was personally present. Quite interesting, right? Quite an opportunity. Okay, so now I will open for questions. Okay, I need to stop the sharing here. Okay, I stopped the sharing. Now I can open the chat, right? Okay, no questions here, but you can ask, any questions that we have. We still have time. So you can just raise your virtual hand or whatever, or you can just open your microphone and speak. So, no, please feel welcome. Hare Krishna. Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhuji. So my question is like, I have heard somewhere like when Krishna or his expansion come here in the material world, so they come through a form of like out of these three Vishnu forms.
Mm.
So which is that one, or is it a right understanding? So this is my question.
Actually, in India, people have it's very common this understanding that Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu and not the opposite, right? Jiva Goswami, he writes a lot about that. It's a kind of a complicated argumentation. I will not remember everything by by memory, but there is three verses, one from Mahabharata, one from I think it's Vishnu Purana, one from Srimad Bhagavatam, that they can be interpreted as meaning that Krishna and Balarama came from the hair of Vishnu and something like that. The words are Sita Krishna Keshava. And some people interpret this people who don't know Sanskrit very well, not wanting to criticize, but they interpret this as meaning that Krishna and Balarama came from the hair. But Jiva Goswami, he makes a very long argumentation explaining that this is not correct. This is not correct interpretation of the words. What the words means is that like Krishna and Balaram, they have these effulgence, they have these rays, right? And that when they descended, Vishnu merged into them as one of these rays, because Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So when Krishna descends, all the incarnations they merge into the body of Krishna. They are all present there. So when Krishna comes in this planet, Vaikuntha is empty. Lord Vishnu is not there. He comes with Krishna. He merges into Krishna. And they are all present inside the body of Krishna. So for example, when a demon appears in Vrindavan, Vasudeva Krishna appears and he fights with the demon. Krishna is there with the cowherd boys, the gopis, the gopas, playing his pastime. Vasudeva Krishna, which is already an expansion, he's fighting and killing the demon, right? So because all these expansions they are already inside the body of Krishna. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he explains this in detail. If you go to my website, the Path of Bhakti, I think you can find there, is Krishna an expansion, is Krishna an incarnation of Vishnu or is Vishnu an incarnation of Krishna? There is an article there. There I put all the arguments, but I can't remember all of this by memories. No, it's quite complicated.
Oh, thank you for
Yes,
explaining.
but you see, Krishna in the Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva he makes very clear Krishna tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's the conclusion of the compiler of the Vedas. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And this verse, what you are going to do, you can't misinterpret. It's very clear. But then what happens that people often they take indirect references and they try to extract some indirect meaning from there. And that's actually the source of all unbonafide philosophies. It's always like this, Mayavada, Sankhya, and so on, all these philosophies that conclude, different things, they are all based on incorrect interpretation of the Sanskrit of some verses. They take the verse out of context, they don't interpret correctly the meaning of the words, they don't, take into account, the correct, the grammatical structure of the verse and so on. And then they came to some, other meaning that is not what the text speaks about. And in the Govinda Bhashya, Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana, he goes, in great lengths, to, show one by one, all these misinterpretations and explaining, all the details, how the verse is supposed to be interpreted and giving one argument and then another and another, to make it very clear. So yeah, it's like that. Hare Krishna. Yes, yes,
Can you hear me?
yes. Hare Krishna. Yes.
I guess, so I have a question. Let me just check. Sorry. What is meant by Sankhya and yoga in the Bhagavad Gita? Because I've only read really Mayavada commentary on this topic because it's so prevalent.
Yes, there are two types of Sankhya actually. When we speak Sankhya, depends on the context. Which Sankhya are we speaking about? So there is this original Sankhya that was spoken by Lord Kapila in Satya Yuga. That's a very old system that is part of the Vedas, right? It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the third canto. There is a summary of the original Sankhya philosophy described by Lord Kapila. So this original Sankhya, it describes the element and the workings of the material world with the goal of bringing one to the platform of devotional service. This is the original Sankhya. Then there is the atheistic Sankhya. That is, what people mean when they speak about Sankhya usually. So the atheistic Sankhya was propounded by another Kapila, some sage that lived a few thousand years ago. He was also called Kapila, but he is an atheist, and he's called the impostor Kapila, right? The original Kapila came in Satya Yuga. And this Sankhya, atheistic Sankhya is also based on the Vedas, but is a partial, like incomplete interpretation of the Vedas. So it takes out the description of the material elements from the original Sankhya system, but it discards all the parts that speak about God and devotional service. So the conclusion of the atheistic Sankhya is that there is no God. Simple as that. It's just the material nature, Prakriti, that is the cause of all the material manifestation, and the souls who come here to enjoy. So material world is like a Disneyland, and the souls, we just come here to enjoy, and when we become tired, we can go back, and achieve liberation. So that's the point. Sankhya philosophy, this atheistic Sankhya philosophy, it is not much discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam discusses only the original Sankhya philosophy. It is discussed in detail in the Govinda Bhasya, because there Baladeva Vidyabhushana, he refutes this philosophy. So he goes, he explains in detail, and then he shows, how to defeat it based on the verses of the Vedas that they use to give sustenance to their philosophy and so on. The fourth pada of the Vedanta Sutra is basically all dedicated to defeating Sankhya philosophy. So that's where we can learn about it and learn also how to defeat it.
Yeah, but my question was, what is
Sorry.
Sankhya and yoga referred to in the Bhagavad Gita? Like, what is he talking about? Because we normally
Okay,
refer
in the
to
context of the
I'm saying.
Bhagavad Gita. Okay,
Yeah,
in the context of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna speaks about Sankhya, he's speaking about analytical study. So, for example, Krishna uses the Sankhya system to explain to Arjuna why he should fight in the second chapter. Like, it's a system of logic, like this analytic study. Oh, you should do this because if not, this will happen, that will happen, and this will be the consequence, and so on. So in the context of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains about Sankhya in this sense of this analytical study of things. And this, of course, is included also in the original Sankhya system.
and then what about yoga? What does he mean by that?
Sankhya Yoga is when you use Sankhya as a way to reach a platform of devotional service. Because you see, in the Bhagavad Gita, it explains about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, and so many types of yoga, right? So these are different processes when we use different tools to come to a platform of devotional service. So for example, Karma Yoga is when we use different material activities, we perform different material activities with the right consciousness, and this connects us with Krishna, right? Jnana Yoga, when we study the scriptures and so on, we try to understand, try to get knowledge with the purpose of understanding Krishna. So yoga means connection. Everything that connects us with Krishna is called yoga. And then the tool that we use for this connection comes in the first part. So karma yoga. Karma is the tool to achieve yoga, connection with Krishna, right? Jnana Yoga. Jnana is the tool, and so on and so forth. Maybe later we can make, a course on the Bhagavad Gita, right? Because Bhagavad Gita is also an amazing book. There's so many things to understand that. Maybe a little later we can have it also. Maybe I should have started right from the Bhagavad Gita, right? But anyway, now we are here already.
Sorry,
Okay.
maybe I've misread this verse, but isn't it in the Bhagavad Gita? Like, I've read a good bit of it, that one can achieve me through either the path of Sankhya or yoga, and both are independent paths to me.
This
paraphrase.
sense.
This is what I mean.
Yes, because Krishna speaks about, now I know the verse. Krishna speaks about Sankhya in this sense of analytic knowledge, and then he speaks about yoga in the sense of Astanga yoga. And then he speaks about that, by the path of bhakti, you can achieve the results of both. So you don't need to practice this path and then that path and then that path and then come to bhakti. You just practice bhakti from the start and you get everything, everything. Or if you practice any of these two processes and you achieve perfection, or in Sankhya by analytic study of everything, or by practicing Astanga Yoga, if you achieve perfection, you also get the result of both. Because perfection means when you connect with Krishna, this is absolute, right? You get everything there.
I understand. Sorry, just last bit. How does Astanga Yoga lead to Krishna? Because I've never heard it in that context.
No, Astanga Yoga means meditation into Paramatma. When you achieve Samadhi, when you can see Paramatma inside the heart, That's the perfection in Astanga Yoga. The problem is that nowadays people, they don't really practice Astanga Yoga. They just do the asanas. The asanas is the first. Oh no, actually the
Third.
first is yama and niyama. Now asana comes in third. So they forget about yama and niyama, about the rules and regulations, and they go directly to the asanas, and they don't even do the asanas correctly, and they forget about everything else. And then of course, they don't get any result, any spiritual result out of it. But when one, really perfectly practices the process of Astanga Yoga, the perfection is to see Paramatma inside the heart, and then he goes back to Godhead, right? And
Okay.
then he gets the result of both paths. But anyway, the point is that we don't need it. We just practice Bhakti Yoga and we get also the result of everything, right? And it's much easier. Good
Okay,
luck,
thank you for your
trying
time.
to achieve perfection practicing Astanga Yoga in your age. Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
yes.
Thank you for the 6 questions and answers put together like that. They were it's very useful and it's helped make it a bit clearer and clearer, the context for me.
Yes.
My question is about the term self-realized soul. Does it mean somebody who's realized the self, or somebody who has become realized by the self? Because some people say that they don't need a spiritual master because they give examples of people who have become realized by themselves without a spiritual master.
Mhm.
And they use that sort of as a reason not to take on a spiritual master themselves. So I was just, since you used that term at the very beginning, atmaramas.
Yeah, actually, this is an English word, right? And the problem with English words is that, people can, that there are, no, it's not always clear, just like the word incarnation. You say incarnation, such and such is an incarnation. What it means? It can mean so many things because there are so many different types of incarnation, right? So the same way when you say self-realization, what exactly it means? But self-realization means that one realizes his original position as a soul, as an eternal servant of Krishna. So he realizes the self, he realizes who he really is. But then the point is from where this realization comes. And the answer is that it's not really possible for one to understand who he really is without the help of the spiritual master, right? So
Right.
self-realization means realization of the self, but this realization of the self, it comes with the help of the spiritual master. Alone no one can get there, because that was this we discussed in the first meeting, how to obtain perfect knowledge, right? Jiva Goswami, he goes so far into it in his Tattva Sandarbha. He makes very clear this point, that we don't have the tools to obtain perfect knowledge in conditioned life, right? Like we don't the senses are imperfect, the intelligence that we so the senses are imperfect, so the information that we get through the senses is imperfect. Then we process this information using another imperfect tool, that is the intelligence. So, and then, there is also the mind, giving some erratic input in the middle. So how we are supposed to get any kind of perfect knowledge like that is impossible. The only way to get perfect knowledge is through a self-realized soul who is getting knowledge from the perfect source, that is Krishna, through the parampara, right?
When people
Yes, and so that's why we need always a spiritual master. Otherwise, it's impossible. We are not going to get, perfect knowledge.
So when people suggest that somebody's made it by themselves, then they're deluded and that person hasn't made it, or they just can't see the help that person's had. They think they've done it.
Yes,
Even maybe in a past lifetime and things like that. Maybe
someone is eluded there, or the person, so-called self-realized person, is not really self-realized. He's just in Maya, or the person who is seeing it is misunderstanding somehow, because it's not really possible.
it's
Simple as that. Yes.
quite a common sort of new age concept. I think I've come across it.
Yeah,
Actually, maybe I haven't thought it myself at one time.
yeah. Yes, and the New Age movements, they have some philosophical problems because they are based on this ascending process. People try to find the truth by themselves. And this is a process that doesn't really work for self-realization. We can, to a certain extent, we can use this process to understand, how the world works, No, we can test things, we can do some experiments, we can understand something about how matter works. But this ascending process, it doesn't work for spiritual topics because it's not possible to do experiments with spirit, with God, right? We can only make experiment with things or beings that are inferior to us. So like a scientist, he can make an experiment with the rabbits and the frogs and the hamsters, whatever, but he can't make experiment with the president of the United States, right? Unless the president, agrees to go there in the laboratory, and be experimented upon, what the scientists will do, right? It's impossible. So if he can't make experiment with the president of the United States, what you say about making experiment with God, right? It's impossible. So it just doesn't work. It's not the right tool to obtain spiritual knowledge. It doesn't work. One will speculate, he will believe in something, but it will be incorrect. Simple as that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes, Arya or Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So first of all, I wanted to ask that, so like the Lord has his incarnations like in the Dashavatar. So
Yes.
then you talked about the sub-incarnations as well that are powered souls. So is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a powered soul or is he a direct incarnation?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in our current age, he is a direct incarnation of Krishna. And this is explained in detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There is a verse on the Srimad Bhagavatam who mentions the incarnation of of Sri Chaitanya. And then on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is all the philosophical basis for his advent. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes only once in the day of Brahma. So Krishna comes like in about more or less the middle of the day of Brahma. Krishna comes one time, and in the same cycle of yugas that Krishna comes, Lord Chaitanya comes next, right? Because Krishna comes and he performs, his pastimes with the gopis, and then at the end he wants to understand himself from the point of the gopis. And then he comes again in Kali Yuga as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he comes to understand, his own relationships with the gopis. And of course, in the process, he comes and he inaugurates the Sankirtan movement and he saves all of us, right? But actually, the main purpose of his coming is to understand himself, to understand, his relationships with the gopis, these loving relationships, pure loving relationships with the gopis. So when Lord Chaitanya
And
comes, he's Krishna himself. Just concluding.
mm,
But in other
yes.
Kali Yugas, there is also a golden avatar that brings the chanting of the holy name, but he's an avatar of Vishnu. It's different, right? He just comes as a yuga avatar, right? To give the dharma of the age. It's not directly Krishna. It's only once in the day of Brahma that Krishna comes directly.
Hmm. And why is it that he's still not shown in the Dashavatar then? Is it because of this reason?
Because he's a hidden incarnation. He's not
Okay.
like a public incarnation, not public, but
Hmm.
not like
Right.
what they're like described, directly described like the
Yeah.
Dasavatara. Because he is a secret incarnation. He's hidden. He doesn't say that he's Krishna. The devotees
Right.
recognize him as Krishna because Krishna can't hide from his devotees. But he doesn't say that he's Krishna. And he doesn't play the role of Krishna. He plays the role of a devotee who comes to teach how to be a devotee. He's accepted as Krishna because his associates they say, oh, actually it's Krishna. But he doesn't say that he's Krishna, nor he plays the role of Krishna.
And yes, so lots of people differentiate between Shiva and Vishnu, and there's also an incarnation of them. I believe it's Harihar, which is like half Vishnu, half Shiva.
Yes.
And you also talked about like 3 forms of Vishnu. So how do we see the similarities between Vishnu and Shiva and their forms? Like, what's the similarities between them? How do we not differentiate?
Lord Shiva, he is a devotee of Vishnu. We start from there. He doesn't play. He doesn't play the same functions as Lord Vishnu. So Lord Shiva, actually, he has a very interesting story because Lord Mahavishnu, when he looks to the direction of the material energy and he sends, all the souls that are going to participate in the material creation, the souls, they don't go alone by themselves. They have a protector, and that's Lord Sadashiva. So Sadashiva, he goes with the souls up to the frontier between the spiritual and the material universe. He doesn't enter the material universe. He stays on the border. From there, he expands himself in all the different Lord Shivas who are entering to each one of the universes. So Sadashiva, he's Vishnu Tattva, he's an expansion of Lord Vishnu. But the different Shivas who enter into each universe, they are different. They are Shiva Tattva, it's a different category because they mix with the material, they associate with the material energy. Prabhupada gives the example of milk and yogurt. No, milk and dahi.
Right.
Dahi, right? Oh, no, not dahi. He gives another because there is
He
dahi
said
that
curd, right? That
curd,
from milk you
yes,
can
curd,
get curd,
because
but the
curd
curd
is
can't become milk.
milk mixed with acid, right? So he gives the
Right.
example of milk and curd. You mix the milk with acid, becomes curd. Curd is also, you can
Hmm.
say that, oh, that's not milk. It's milk, comes from milk. But because there is something else mixed, it doesn't work like milk anymore. You can't put curd in the same recipes that you can put milk, right? It's a different
Yeah.
product, right? It's milk, but it's a transformation of milk. So Lord Shiva, he comes originally from Vishnu, but he's not Vishnu. He's a transformation of Vishnu. Sometimes Lord Shiva is an expansion of Sadashiva, sometimes he's an empowered Jiva. Sometimes Shiva is an empowered Jiva. He's a Shaktavesh that
Hmm.
performs this function of Shiva inside a particular universe. So as Lord Shiva, he has the function of acting like the guardian of the conditioned souls. So he gives shelter, to all the demons and bhutas and spirits, all these people who no one else can help. And also he acts like the senior most Vaishnava, right? The ideal Vaishnava
Hmm.
inside of that particular universe, giving also shelter for the devotees who understand who he really is. Usually followers of Lord Shiva, they see Lord Shiva as a demigod and they worship Lord Shiva to obtain different material benefits. But these are not real followers of Lord Shiva. They don't
Hmm.
understand who Lord Shiva is. Real followers of Lord Shiva are Vaishnavas who understand who he really is, a servant of Lord Vishnu, and they worship him like that in that position. That's a real
Hmm.
Lord Shiva. So there's not much point in trying to find uh, similarities between Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu because they play different roles, right?
Right.
So it's just different. We need to accept it's different. It's not the same. And okay, some similarities are there, of course, but no, it's just different, right? It's just like trying to find similarities between an apple and an orange. Okay, they're fruits, they're sweet, but they're different things, right?
And yes, my final question, you talked about the ocean of milk,
Yes.
and I believe there's a story where there was a churning that was happening in the
Yes, we
ocean
will
of milk,
see
the
this
Samudra
later.
Manthan, right?
Yes.
So what exactly is this ocean of milk? And if you're to explain it better, what actually happened there as per the Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe?
Yes, no, literally is an ocean of milk. It's not exactly milk like from the cow, but it's an ocean that has, somehow more or less properties of milk. It's white and it's sweet and
Hmm.
so on. Uh, so this ocean, every day of Brahma, the demigods and the demons, they make this pastime that they churn this milk ocean to get different desirable things from there.
Hmm.
And this pastime of the churning of the ocean of milk is also the excuse for the appearance of many divine manifestations inside this particular universe. For example, Lakshmi Devi appears from the churning of the ocean. Lakshmi Devi is eternal. She's eternally the consort of Lord Vishnu. But she appears inside this particular universe at this point, right? So it's like because everything that is material has a beginning, right? So the same way, like for example, when Krishna comes, he comes as a small child, and then he plays sequentially all his different pastimes, right? Why?
Hmm.
to give this idea of like of a beginning and then some sequence, so we can understand, because everything in the material world is organized like that. So Krishna also organized his pastimes in a way that can be understood by us. Similarly, there is a pastime where Lakshmi Devi appears. She's eternal, but she appears, it's like a theater, she appears, okay, now I
Right.
appeared, Haribol, you can worship me, and so on.
Well, thank you so much, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Yes?
Hare
Hare
Krishna, my
Krishna.
obeisance.
My obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Lord Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for your class. It was very
Thank you.
interesting. It's I'm thinking a lot about this material world, and I'm thinking, is it really real? Because Garbhoddakashayi is sleeping. He sleeps. He lays on the
Yes.
Anantashesha and he sleeps. And even our scientists, if they divide that particle of matter so many times, they came to conclusion that there is no solidity. It's just information and energy. And
Yes.
also, when we think about this material world and objective reality, it's not really objective, because the picture that they saw in our mind is just electrical signals.
Yes.
And it's interesting. Is it real, or is just a dream of Garbhoddakashayi Vishnu?
Yeah,
I mean,
actually, no,
it's real that this material world, or is just an illusion?
actually, in the Vedic systems of philosophy, these Indian systems of philosophy, is actually a big discussion if the material world is real or not. But actually, the conclusion of Vyasadeva, the final conclusion, it actually exists. It's not just like some, it's not false. It exists. But at the same time, it is illusory. So how something can be real and illusory at the same time, right? It's interesting. So it is real in the sense that it really exists. We are here, we are experiencing it, it's happening. But it is illusory in the sense that is not real in the full sense. For example, that's not a very good example, but that's the best that I can think of. Okay, there are faults in this example, but up to a certain extent, it may help us to understand. Like you have a computer, you install some game in the computer, right? And then inside the game, there is some virtual reality. You can run around, you can fly, wherever. You interact with other people. Is this game real or false? You can't say that it's false because it's there, it's running, it's using memory, and CPU cycles. You are seeing, other people are seeing, you are interacting with these people through the game and so on. So the game is real, it exists. But is it reality? Not really, right? It's not really real. It's a game, it's a simulation, right? It's so you were so it's real in the sense that it's happening and you are experiencing it. But it's not real in the sense that it's really it's real life, right? It's just some kind of illusion, some fantasy or whatever. So this material world, at the same time, it exists, it's real sense, but in another sense, it is illusory. One, because it doesn't really affect our condition as souls. We can die, millions of times in this material world, and we never die in reality, right? We are still souls, no, the same way, right? It doesn't affect us in real life as souls, but affects our consciousness because we are experiencing all of these things. Like if you play some game that is very scary, maybe you are going to have, nightmares, right? It will affect your consciousness, although the game is not real. So the same way that this material world is not fully real, but it affects our consciousness, right? And then after we spend so much time here inside the simulation, we have to, go through a kind of difficult process to bring our consciousness back to its original state, right? At the same time, also, the material world is called illusory because what we think it is not the same as what it is in reality. So just like the game, right? We see it and say, oh, whole world here to me to explore and so many adventures and so on. But what the game really is, it's just a bunch of code running by the processor and using memory and so on, right? It's just some, a lot of numbers running there inside the computer. But we think that is real. So that's Maya, that's illusion, right? If you see one thing, but in reality it's something else. It exists, but it's not what we think. So in the same way, what we call reality is just what is the information that is gathered by your senses and that is processed through the mind. And then the mind gives us an image, an interpretation of all of this that we call reality, right? And that's one of, but what reality really is, we don't know. We have our own reality, right? But what reality really is, I don't know. How this material world really looks, I don't know. I'm just have this illusion that that's what my mind tells us that tells me that the material world is, and that's what I was going to speak. Now I got lost somehow on my ideas. Uh, okay, anyway, I was thinking something else, but just somehow I lost the idea. But see, that's the point. No, that's what's called Maya. We have an idea that it's something, but actually in reality it's something else, right? With like, for example, I know get some no, for many years I saved money to buy, a Ferrari, and I have this idea that this is going to be my car, forever is going to be my car. I take the Ferrari, next turn I drive it into the someone's garage and I destroy the car. So, it was illusion. It was not eternal, right? It's not meant to be eternal, but I was thinking it would be eternal. And then I create this illusion that, this car is going to be my car eternally. And when I lose the car, I suffer. And that's how it works in this material world. We become attached to things that are temporary, that are illusory. We just create some idea that, this person is going to love me forever. Did you ask him? Or did you believe him when he said it? And then we have this idea, he's going to love me forever. And then when he, betrays us or leaves us, wherever, we suffer. But it was meant to be temporary since day one. It's just that we ourselves created this idea that is going to be eternal. And then when we are faced with the reality, it's not eternal, then we suffer, right? And that's part of the material illusion.
Thank you so much. It's a great
Yes.
example.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
great
Thank
example.
you.
And it's interesting that in a computer game we can die several times and we have lives there.
Yes.
You die and again you like game over and you have another life. It's interesting. And I just love the way you called it simulation. It means that it's just I mean it's a kind of a world that is simulated, but there is another real world, right? That is not simulation.
Yes, interesting. In the third canto is explained the process of creation of the universe, how the universe is made. It comes to exist, from nothing, basically, right? Just from energy. And it's interesting how it describes, this process of creation of the universe, how the different and one thing that Brahma creates first is material illusion. Because without illusion, you can't live in this world. You can't believe that this world is real, right? So it comes from right from the beginning, illusion. And then other things are created, success in succession, right? All culminating with the material elements and then the senses and so on. It's like really like a simulation. It has so many layers, one on top of the other. And so we can experience it. But like I said, it's not really like it's real because we are experiencing it, but it's not real in the full sense. It's more or less like a game, right? You are there, you are playing, you die, you kill someone, and so on.
Yeah, thank you. And one little question, and how this
Yes.
relate to the fact that Garbhatakasha is sleeping? I mean, he sleeps and he see dreams, or he doesn't
Yeah,
see dreams.
Prabhupada says that this material creation is more or less like the dream of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. But even if when we speak about dream, is the same thing. Is a dream real or false? You can say that the dream is false because we are experiencing it. right?
Mhm.
So Mahavishnu is experiencing this dream, and because we are all parts and parcels of him, we are all connected with him. We are experiencing the dream. So the dream is not false. The dream is happening. Someone is experiencing the dream. But at the same time, the dream is illusory. The dream is not like fully real. Like you can be eaten by the tiger inside the dream, and when you wake up, everything is there, all the parts of your body are still there, right? So actually, most topics in the Vedas, they are like that. That's why the Vedas, actually, the philosophy in the Vedas, they can only be understood when a person elevates himself to the mode of goodness. Actually, this is a
Mm.
prerequisite. It's impossible to understand correctly the Vedas while we are in passion and ignorance. It's just impossible. Why? Because in passion and ignorance, we are under material duality. Material duality means it's black or it's white. If it's white, it's not black. If it's black, it's not white. It's sweet or it's salt. If it's sweet, it's not salt, right? It's like our intelligence is like a chapati, has only two sides, right? And we use this chapati intelligence to study the world, and we come to all kinds of wrong conclusions about spiritual topics because we classify everything as black and white, cold and hot and so on. But spiritual topics almost always they have different sides. They have multiple different sides, and to fully understand a topic, we need to understand all the sides simultaneously and harmonize all the sides. And this kind of intelligence that we need to understand in this level only appears when we are at least in the mode of goodness. So that's one of the reasons Krishna explains so much about the three material modes in the Bhagavad Gita, because that's actually essential knowledge. Without elevating ourselves to goodness, at least, it's very difficult to properly understand spiritual knowledge. We're going to hear something, we're going to understand something, we're going to reach some conclusion, but this conclusion is probably going to be wrong because we are not using the right tools to process this knowledge. So that's also something that is important. Gradually, we need to work in our habits and in our spiritual practice so we can gradually come to the mode of goodness, and then we can start understanding everything. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you for everyone for coming, and I hope it was productive for you. You learned something today. I will send the takeaway with the main top points of today later there on Telegram, and also tomorrow we'll send the recording and the PDF and so on. So thank you very much for coming. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande. Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you
Also, I
so much.
forgot to say, tomorrow, the same time, we will do the reading of these verses of the first chapter. I will announce that in the group. It will be same address maybe. I think I can put on the same address, but anyway, I will announce that in the group. But it will be same time that as today. And then we will just go through the verses and read and explain something. You can ask more questions, wherever. Okay. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Gaura Premanande.
Hare
Haribo.
Krishna.
Go.
Yes,
Hare
thank you so much.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.